is descended from Michael and or Richter and / Annette. So if Richter was the last of the Belmont at the time, he had to have some kids with somebody.
All right.
Anyway.
Definitely not a topic Geek Nights is going to do a panel on or an episode on. Though I don't know if we've reviewed every Castlevania game we've played.
Oh, what have we done at Tuesday on Castlevania?
Let me check that out before we start the show. I already went live. Let's see. Cast episodes. Castly.
Oh, so Castlevania 1 is also Simon. Okay.
Castlevania, we did Portrait of Ruin and Excite Truck. We reviewed them in the same episode.
No, but I'm saying that like the first Castlevania game is also Simon Belmont.
Yeah.
And so is 2, obviously.
Yeah, because he kills Dracula and then he has to kill Dracula again.
Yes. Castlevania 3, is that also Simon?
I thought that was Richter. I guess I'm wrong.
That's Trevor.
Yeah, that's Trevor. Okay.
Okay.
We've only ever reviewed Castlevania Portrait of Ruin in 2007 in a dual feature with Excite Truck.
So actually, Castlevania 3 takes place before 1 or 2, according to this timeline, because Trevor is way up higher than Simon is.
Castle Crashers, Castle Waiting, Castle in the Sky. All right. Anywho, I think we're just good to go. So I'm going to hit the old record. Ba-ba-ba. I assume you have also hit record.
I just pressed the record.
All right. It's Monday, July 3rd, 2023. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are talking about rate limiting and throttling and that kind of thing. So the air's been poo-poo garbage in the New York area for quite a while now, off and on. And because of the wildfires, it's actually worse than it even appears, because the AQI, the Air Quality Index, which I feel like sadly a lot of people didn't know existed until for some reason in the last few weeks, it's one of the most Googled for things. But
I mean, we've been following it for a few years, but usually I only look at it when I look at, when it's noticeable, right?
Yep. Like if I go up, before now, if I went out for a run and I was slow or feeling crappy when I came in, I'd be like, is there some reason? And I'd look and it'd usually be like, oh yeah, the AQI was 80. What the fuck were you doing running, Rim? You should have checked that before you went out.
Well, I think now, the Apple Weather app has it there, but I think on the weather report, it should just be right there next to the temperature.
Yep, because it is.
The problem is we can't forecast it as easily as temperature.
Yep, the forecasts are all over the place, but we can kind of forecast the normal AQI because it's actually pretty cyclical and predictable. The problem is these wildfires. On one hand, not all the numbers that go into AQI are made equal. They are different levels of damaging and different levels of harmful, and they affect different people differently. But it gets rolled up into one number. So, if it's 50, but it's NO2, CO2, or ozone or whatever, that's just irritating. But if it's 50 and it's particulates, like tiny ones, that's way worse.
Basically, I'm sure particulates come in every conceivable size.
Yeah, but they have two categories, PM10 and PM2.5.
Quark size up to rock size, right? But, the two categories they tend to list are the 10s and the 2.5s, and they're measured in particles per meter or something? Is that it?
2.5, I want to say it's particles under 2.5 nanometers.
It's ppm is the whatever, right? But the point is, the 10s are kind of big.
The term fine particulates or particulate matter 2.5 PM 2.5 refers to tiny particles or droplets in the air that are 2 1/2 microns or less in width.
Okay. But the point is, the ones that are 10 microns in width, it's that's not great.
Yeah.
But the 2.5 ones are real bad.
They're so small. It's not they get in your lungs and irritate your lungs. No, ozone irritates your lungs. They're so small, they get straight into your blood directly. And they're just pumping around in your blood. And if you think that's bad, it's real bad for you. Even worse, not all PM 2.5s are made the same. If it comes from some sources, it's not that big a deal relative to.
Because you're just saying, okay, it's a particle. 2.5 is just saying there are particles in the air that are this size. Those particles could just be carbon.
Yep.
They could be poison. it could be both.
But if they,
who knows what it is, right?
if they come from
Arsenic
wood
gas.
smoke, especially wildfires, they are filled with benzenes and all sorts of cancer-causing dangerous chemicals. They're volatiles. They're like gassing off poison constantly while they're in you.
Yep. So it's sort of like if you were to go out in that and breathe a bunch, right? You're putting a bunch of that shit into your blood because it's 2.5 size.
Yep.
And so that's basically the equivalent of like smoking tobacco, right? Depending on how much you breathe.
Except every breath. Imagine if you're smoking like 5 cigarettes at once, but every time you breathe in through the cigarettes.
Yeah. Or like drinking alcohol and it goes right in your blood, only obviously without the fun drunk part.
Yep. And way more dangerous than even alcohol itself in your blood. Like PM 2.5 from wood fires is one of the more dangerous things you can inhale that isn't just poison gas on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, it's you basically don't go outside and breathe a whole bunch is the point.
Yep. So today we got real lucky. The AQI was like 20, so I went out for a run, and I have only run like 3 times in the last 3 weeks because of all this terrible
I haven't
smoke.
been able to bike like much at all, maybe 3 times. I don't know.
And I was just so much faster than I was even when I ran a couple weeks ago when it was like 50, 60, which wasn't a great idea, but I still did it. No, I was just like way faster and felt way better. So we'll see. Hopefully it's good when we're at the beach.
Well,
Yep. So anyway, got any news?
I do have a news. Let me click on here and let's see. Remember what the news
Massive mineral deposit discovery could mean global battery and solar panel demand.
Yes, I'm sure everyone is possibly aware. I hope that people keep talking about like the rare elements that we need for all these technologies we've developed, like electronics and batteries specifically, right? And there's all these rare earth elements, and we've got It's true. There are places on Earth where there is like child labor digging through poisonous junk heaps to rescue like a tiny amount of gold or other shit from some motherboard that was discarded. And
every dollar you spend is just funded by, at some point, children being exploited to dig stuff out of the ground and then die.
Yep. And there are legitimate-ish mines, but they're in countries that we don't like. They're not so friendly, and they're getting less friendly. And, if you want electronic stuff in your country and the raw materials for electronics come from bad country, right? Well, or, at least country.
Like coffee's not great.
Not to say bad country. Some of them are bad.
Well, the governments are bad. The people.
Your country where you live isn't so friendly with.
Yep.
Then that's a problem for getting electronic biz. You could see a divide in the world of like some country has batteries, some country has not. One country has very high battery price, another has not.
And if you want to see what that looks like there's precedent for this. What was oil to the world for the last several hundred years?
Yeah, I mean, look, in Iran or Turkey, pistachios cheap.
The Bronze Age collapse.
Pistachios expensive and less good.
Ancient times, the Bronze Age collapse destroyed the entire global economy because no one country had the 2 components of bronze mineable at the same place at the same time. You had to trade to get it.
Yep. And so it would be nice if we were able to find, more of these elements, right, in countries that our country was friendly with.
Now, hard mode, it's right there in the name, rare.
Yeah, right. It's like the Earth is also, you think, we've explored, we're going to outer space, we're going to the bottom of the sea and dying there. We should be, we should know the entire contents of the Earth. But no, even though we're exploring space and we can see nebulas and shit, the Earth is still it's like we think, the Earth is so small compared to the sun or Jupiter or, the Milky Way. But it's like, yeah, but we're still fucking small. The Earth is still so big compared to us.
And we're just a
lot of the Earth that we don't fucking know.
We're such a thin skin on the Earth. We're not even talking about how we actually don't know much about what's inside the Earth. We don't really have access to the mantle. We're making guesses, and we keep updating them because we've been way wrong about the Earth.
Yeah.
But even in that thin skin, that's 0.0001% of the Earth itself, we can't find anything on it.
Nope. But, the people who are scanning the earth, right, and looking for stuff in it are mostly mining companies, right? And some of them are doing it in bad ways, like the oil companies that are just like blasting sound at the bottom of the ocean looking for oil and messing up with all the fish.
Yep.
They've been doing that for a long time. No one really, only the people who are deep into the environmentalism are mad about that.
Yep, because it's so horrible, but yet there's like this catalog of horrors that we inflict upon the world, many of which are so much worse. It's like you don't notice the bokoblin poking at you from behind when you're fighting two Lionels.
But anyway, so in Norway, a country our country is friendly with, they have supposedly, they say, discovered a mega mine. Like it's basically like if you were playing Minecraft and you chiseled a bit and they're just like fucking diamonds everywhere.
Yep.
Right?
Enough minerals to meet, quote, the global demand for batteries and solar panels for the next 100 years.
Yeah, so we won't live to see this mine run out if it's real, and it seems to be real.
And we're going to live to see them mine it. They say it'll be operational within 5 years.
Yeah, they're hurrying up with the operation. They're like, oh shit, let's get, oh goddamn. Oh,
but the most important news, Norway heavily regulates this stuff. So while mining is not...
the people who live in Norway, the people of Norway, the citizens, should be thrilled because they are going to see the benefits of this wealth very directly.
Yep.
Because the way Norway operates. So
this is actually, sometimes there's good news. There's been a lot of bad news for the past.
Well, it's sort of a good, it's sort of a good news, but it's also sort of they're gonna make a big nasty mine. They're probably gonna make the most nicest sustainable kind of mine that our technology and capitalism will allow. But it's still
but the externalities of mines
for the animals living near the phosphate.
Yeah, but also the future of Earth where we don't keep making better batteries and at least move stuff to electric so we have more fungibility of how we power things is way worse.
Yeah.
Like cars are awful, but changing every car to electric would mitigate some of that harm in a material way. Now, the tires are a bigger problem, but that's a separate problem.
This also will have, effects on, the political climate of the world as the places that had the mines for this kind of stuff are now going to see the value of those minerals go down. That's bad news for those countries that are not friendly with our country.
Well, right now, the EU is currently almost wholly dependent on imports of phosphate rock from external sources, primarily China, Iraq, and Syria.
Yeah, countries our country not friendly with.
Yeah.
So they are going to fix that in a few years. And so the countries you just mentioned are like, uh-oh, monies, we lose it. Norway will get that monies instead. And uh-oh.
Yep. We'll see how that goes. So I'm sure the dictatorial governments of those countries will have a solid plan to transition to a more open democracy and join the world. Man. Get really cynical once you hit about 40, but this is still good news.
The effect on our lives is that in say 5 to 10 years, we could see battery prices go down.
Yeah.
And make it,
or we could see battery prices stay the same, but batteries stop blowing up and burning down buildings because all our batteries are legit.
I think what you're going to see is the price going down because right now we already know how to make batteries that don't explode. The problem is people want to save money on batteries, get cheapy ones, right?
Yep. But then there is a huge price divide.
Goes down, there won't be a reason to buy the cheapy one because the cheapy one will be a good one.
So what, at least seven major building fires that burned a building down and killed people happened in New York over the last several years from e-bike batteries. But meanwhile, City Bike has e-bikes, and I've dug up the stats. You know how many City Bikes have ever caught fire?
I think it's one.
It's exactly one. There's one that happened. There was a second one that caught fire in the City Bike warehouse, supposedly during QA testing of the batteries. So I guess the QA worked.
Well, I think the thing is with the City Bikes, even though the batteries are much higher quality.
Those batteries are $900 each.
Yes, and that's a large part of the reason they're not exploding.
Yeah, you expect some poor delivery guy who has to bring his own equipment to work to get paid minimum wage is gonna buy a $900 battery.
Right, but also it's the fact that the batteries don't explode while you're riding usually, it's while they're charging. And the City Bike batteries are not charging out on the street. They're charging at central charging locations that City Bike manages professionally.
Yeah, those city bike docks.
Delivery guy batteries are like being charged on the floor of a restaurant or in some shady bike shop in the back,
Yeah, I believe there were some city bike stations there's like a pilot program to do charging of the bikes on them, but almost every city bike station, yeah, they're not charging those bikes. That light's just telling you it's out. They have a truck that comes around and just physically swaps all the batteries every night.
Yep, and then they charge them somewhere else, probably somewhere the electricity's cheap.
Probably somewhere where there's a human being just keeping an eye on them as well.
I imagine they also probably have, I wish someone should make a YouTube video and tour the city bike battery charging facility.
It's like a Tim Scott kind of thing. Like that guy would make that kind of video.
I wonder if they have like solar panels there or something that's like getting extra energy to cut their electric bill, right?
Yeah, or charging them like off hours, like they charge them all at night when there isn't as much demand for AC.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just looking up really quick because if I can't find one, I think what I should do is email them and ask, hey, could we get a tour? Journalism something. Worst case, they ignore me. I don't see anything. I don't think anyone's all right.
Yeah, but it'd be like we should bill it like, hey, show us what safe battery charging looks like.
Yeah, that would be fun. All right.
If the place had set on fire, we would have heard about it.
Right.
So it's been working for a long time with no fires.
So in some other news, there's a clusterfuck of news around Twitter, like shooting itself in its own foot.
Again?
Yeah,
Again.
Yeah.
This is literally the news every day. Why would it be worth talking? It was worth talking about when it started happening, when the sale happened, and for a few days thereafter.
Because I feel like
possibly have happened to make it worth talking about again.
This one actually got like regular news, like regular old CNN now is running articles and shows like segments that are like, so Twitter stopped working for you. Where do you go next? Well, how does Mastodon work? Like people are, because what happened was at the same time, if you're not logged into Twitter now, you can't see any tweets at all. Full stop. And I suspect that a huge percentage of all Twitter looks are people who are not logged in at the time.
Yep. Yeah, people, I guess the embeds still work, right?
No, the embeds also stopped working. So
really,
Twitter embeds
at all
also stopped working.
So every news article on every website that had Twitter embeds now just has an empty square.
Yeah, and the preview card stopped working as well. So even if you post a tweet into a Discord or something now, no preview card appears anymore. It doesn't matter if you're logged in or not.
Mm-hmm.
And even worse, if you are logged in, they're limiting any individual account now to some piddly number of viewed tweets per day before they cut you off unless you pay for their special Twitter Blue.
Well, I'm probably viewing way less than that number.
Yep. Oh yeah, the listener is all the listener are posting in the chat like, yeah, the embeds also stopped working.
Okay, well.
So
that's the value. They just destroyed their value.
Yeah, because the only value they had was eyeballs will come here.
Right. The value of Twitter is, for the people who are reading, right? It's like, yeah, you can get this feed of stuff that you read, of people you follow, whatever, right? But for the people who post, the value is I can write a line of text or an image and then share it around the web.
Yep.
Other people can share it around the web. If it can't be shared, a tweet can't really go viral or anything.
Yep.
You just basically defeated the entire purpose of the whole thing.
So a bunch of other stuff broke as a side effect. TweetDeck just stopped working because
TweetDeck. I use TweetDeck and it has not stopped working.
Really? Because many people reported that it stopped working because it hits the rate limit almost instantly. And part of its functionality, supposedly, I got an article here on The Verge about it, that one of the APIs that they shut down was necessary for some functionality in TweetDeck. Twitter has announced now today that they're shutting down TweetDeck and forcing everyone to migrate to a new version of TweetDeck, ASAP.
Okay. So I could.
It's the open preview, that TweetDeck 2 that nobody used.
Yes, there is. Right. So that's what's happened. There has been for quite a while now, like a TweetDeck upgrade that has already been deployed.
It's like 2 years old.
Yeah, it's been around a long time, but not a lot of people used it. I didn't use it, but it seems that now, yes, they do force you into using it, and so.
I found the specific thing. Old TweetDeck
semi-force you.
Old TweetDeck works for tweeting still, but if you actually use it to look at tweets, it basically hits the rate limit so fast that it stops working, and all the columns are just empty.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, an employee at Twitter claims, anonymously that Twitter removed a specific legacy API that TweetDeck relied on to fill the search columns because that same API they thought was being used for data scraping of Twitter. But it turns out there's another story from today as well claiming that what was using that API that they freaked out about was a bug in some other part of Twitter's code. So they were hitting themselves with the DDoS, and then they shut down the API that was being hit.
Well, I'm going to have to try out this. Yes, it is true. You're forced into the new, I just verified. I was forced-ish into the new TweetDeck.
Well, they move fast because they announced it earlier today.
So now I will have to try out. I never actually tried it because I was like, you know, whatever. But I'll see. The only thing I need is the ability to turn off retweets in this column.
Yeah. I wonder if turning off retweets will help you prevent not hit the limit.
If it's actually broken and I can't use it anymore, it's like that's no big deal because like hardly anyone's tweeting anymore anyway, right?
Yep.
It's
well, because one of our friends earlier today was like, "Oh, this thing is a thing," and I don't see it anywhere on the internet. I'm like, "What are you talking about? That is so deep in the right-wing nutjobosphere that like, why would you even talk about it?" And he's like, "Oh, it's trending on Twitter." And I'm like, "What? You're still using Twitter for one?" And then he posts a link to it. And I'm like, can't click on that. Not logged in. So yeah, Twitter's getting to the point to where mainstream news, because of this massive outage, is even telling people how to get off of Twitter. That's a shame. Like, I don't think Twitter's just going to survive this.
Well, I mean, we knew it wasn't going to survive for okay, you can still make a custom column here.
All right. Custom columns were one of the main reasons I used TweetDeck. That and before they added it to the main Twitter scheduling.
Well, because there's no ads on it also.
Yep. So there's one more story about Twitter that was interesting because Twitter denied this specifically, but a whole bunch of people reported it. And people who block brand accounts when they see ads for them were getting kicked off of Twitter, and they were raising a stink about it. But Twitter says they weren't kicked off because of that, and I can't find any further corroboration because that story was entirely subsumed by most of Twitter breaking for most people. And one last little news, because it's actually kind of a big deal. It's not a tech news, but the U.S. Supreme Court, if you didn't know, our Supreme Court basically has sessions or terms where for a given year, they will pick all the cases they're going to rule on, and then there's usually there's a week or two toward the end of it where they release a bunch of rulings like all in a row. And it was pretty much almost nothing but bad news. America doesn't have affirmative action anymore. Student loan forgiveness is dead. A whole bunch of other bad shit happened. It's okay to discriminate against LGBT people in your business. Like, it's just bad news all around.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I don't know what else we can say about that because there's no legal way. Like, that's it. There is nothing that can overrule the Supreme Court but an act of Congress, which even that might require a constitutional amendment, or a John Marshall situation. All right, about 20 minutes. I think we can talk about rate limiting enough to make this a long enough show.
Doesn't seem to be working properly, though.
Oh, is TweetDeck not working for you?
Well, I'm trying to make a column that only shows people I follow without any, and only the tweets and not the retweets. And there are people here I don't remember following.
Oh, yeah. So you remember, they force specific accounts into everyone's feeds no matter what. So I assume that applies to TweetDeck.
Those. No.
They're not those?
No.
Are you following these people?
I'm just trying to get it's just.
I'm curious, are you following them or not? Because if they're showing up in your feed.
Barakos Spiana, Arash, or Prince Pinche Batman are forced into everyone's feed. No, this has nothing to do with it.
No, so there's some accounts that are forced into everyone's feed.
I'm making a search column, right? I'm searching for all, right? Because,
I remember seeing a thing that the search APIs also pull in stuff from the feed stuff now, too.
This is nothing like that.
Because they killed their public search. No. That also went away.
No.
I'm looking at an article on The Verge about this right now.
That's not what's happening in this situation.
All right, then why are you seeing these tweets?
Seeing are nothing like that.
All right, but what are they? Are they a tweet from an account you don't follow?
Yeah, but they're just nonsense like Japanese tweets and someone trying to get Taylor Swift tickets. I don't know what the hell this is. Just a bunch of garbage because I'm trying. The only way I can make is the search column. So we'll see if I can figure this out.
Yeah, because the public search is gone, and people are saying that the search APIs return unrelated results all the time now.
Oh no, wait. Search. Oh, here we go. I think I can do it this way. Search tweets, like replies. Don't show. I figured it out.
Got it working.
Oh, that's interesting. Show. My home. This is my home column, but why does it have people I don't follow? But who are these people?
It might be the algorithm just sticking stuff in your feed.
I think this. I don't know. There's people I follow, but there's just some random.
Everyone's complaining that they're seeing tweets from people they don't follow. Not just the Elon Musk forced into your feed.
Definitely someone I don't follow because I hover over their name and there's a follow button.
Yeah. It's just random stuff from the algorithm.
It could be.
Because the same people are reporting or saying on Verge that they see if you do a search query against the search API, you get back the search plus a bunch of tweets that seem random. All right. Anyway, we can go to the things of the day. But anyway, things of the day. So if you never watched the old Muppet Show, which is a fantastic show and highly recommend you watching it, there's one segment in the Muppet Show that would come in occasionally. Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew, and Beaker. These Muppets are famous. Even if you've never didn't know their names, you might have only known one of their names, I suspect, especially if you're older. But they're pretty iconic. And I remember as a kid, Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew, and Beaker were some of the funnier characters, and I always enjoyed their segments. So this YouTube video that I just bumped into is just a half-hour long YouTube video. 24 Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew, and Beaker clips in their entirety. I watched it. They're just as funny as I remember. I laughed out loud a couple times, and if you've never seen this stuff, I highly recommend you watch it. So what do you got?
What did I have? Yeah, so in 1962, right, somebody interviewed Miles Davis, the legendary jazz.
Cool kids to cool kids.
And so, this was not like your normal kind of interview. This is like one of those deep interviews where like the person like was hanging out with Miles Davis at his house and shit.
That was the era where Playboy had some like we don't fuck around interviews.
Yep. And so this interview is pretty fascinating and I'd say worth reading. I guess it's possible it might not be real, but that seems unlikely. I'm pretty sure it's real. But yeah, this is worth reading because it's like, even though this took place in 1962, this interview, you could have believed that this was an interview yesterday, right? Because nothing that is said in here is, I guess all of it is timeless material.
Well,
right?
because America was a country built on racially based chattel slavery and white supremacy, and here we are. Every problem in America's political system.
1962 to 2023 is 40, 50, 60 years.
Yep.
Right? And yeah, so...
Oh, the cover of that Playboy article is pretty good, too.
Yep. So I highly recommend reading this article that is available free online with a Creative Commons license, despite being from a Playboy magazine.
Yep.
It's really interesting. You go to the bottom of this webpage, it's like copyright 1998 Playboy. This work is licensed under Creative Commons license.
Yeah.
Make up your mind.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe Playboy, the company, like did something. Maybe they released some, I don't know. But yeah, this is generally interviews where people ask actual serious questions and then have follow-ups are surprisingly rare.
No, right? He's actually trying to get to know the person, why he behaves the way he does, what he actually thinks about things, right?
Yeah.
You know, not just like, you know, the interviews you see with celebrities today, like, so you got a new thing coming out? Okay, let's talk about some funny anecdote happened in your life recently, and you know, let's show a clip from your new movie coming out. The end, right?
You've won all the trumpet polls after yourself.
Right, this is not a promotional interview. He's not trying to promote Miles Davis, right?
Playboy.
He's trying to sell Miles Davis's latest album. He's just saying, all right, let's get the public to understand this person better. Yeah.
You've won all the trumpet polls. After yourself, how would you rank the others? After me, hell, there's plenty of great trumpet players that didn't come after me or after anybody else. That's what I hate so much about critics. Cue rant from Miles Davis around ranking musicians as opposed to enjoying music.
That's right. Also, list of amazing all the best trumpet players.
Yep. Any special reason you didn't mention Louis Armstrong? Oh, Pops. No, why didn't I mention him? Because I was talking about modern jazz players. I love Pops. This interview is great.
Yeah.
In the Meta Moment, the GeekNights Book Club book, This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. I imagine our next Thursday episode will do the show because it looks like a really short read. Probably read it at the beach. Yeah, I think I'll read it at the beach. So we'll see. I've seen some divisive opinions about this one from people I know. I've seen 2 people we know say they really liked it, and 1 person we know express extreme surprise that it was picked as the book club and looks forward to us hating it, even though you've already read it. So we'll see how this goes. Otherwise, we will have a panel at PAX West on games you can't play anymore. Details TBD, but it should be on Sunday. I got the panel room and stuff in an email somewhere I'm not going to pull up. And we're probably not doing any shows next week. So that hiatus will be announced and on purpose. It's our writer's retreat. All right. So rate limiting, throttling, that kind of thing. I guess what I want to say before we get started is that being in capital markets, this has been a big part of my career, like this, dealing with this question or this concept in some capacity. And I would say this is in the short list of problems that seem really simple, but when you actually try to do something specific or implement things, it actually gets shockingly complex and difficult. Like rate limiting and throttling is one of the harder problems to solve well in computer science, especially depending on the context and how important the application is. But it is kind of amazing how big a topic this has been in my entire professional career and is still going today, and is also directly related to what broke at Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the concept, really simply, if we talk about rate limiting, is just the idea that in a computer, in any computer system, let's go back to our old How Computers Work type series. Let's say you want one computer to ask another computer for something. Well, how fast could computer 1 ask computer 2 for things? Could I ask 100 times a second? 1,000 times a second, 10,000 times a second.
Yeah,
and on the
this used to not be such a problem, in the oldest computers, like, mainframes with timeshares, because like you're literally on the same CPUs. Like you can't ask, right? It's like, it's like the asking is limited by the same computer that's doing the answering, right? So it's like if you try to type something in, it's like you're still waiting to even send your question while it's doing stuff. You can't like hammer it. But as soon as you have networking and different computers, right? It's like one computer could be way faster than another, or one computer could get asked by many computers. And it's like, unless your network is slower than your computer is, you can get questions coming in faster than answers can go out. Right?
And the problems are very, very different between the requester side and the responder side as well. Like, for example, say you're a requester, you're requesting stuff from an API, you've got to deal with any consequences of your asking. If you ask a lot of questions and it slows down, can you handle that? Will you crash yourself because you have a queue of open questions you're waiting for answers for? If a computer asks a question, it has to remember it asked it and have something somewhere reminding itself and taking up resources to do something with that answer. So if I open 10,000 asks, either I have closed a bunch of those as I had made my 10,000th one, or I now have 10,000 things waiting for a response.
Yep.
But on the producer side, it could be even worse, because how do you handle someone asking you a lot? It takes resources to even meter how many requests are coming in. It takes resources to do something about it. If you start rejecting requests, rejections still take resources. What if you don't have enough resources to even reject something?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the timing nuance issue in between the two. And this is an area I have a lot of experience with, and it's been a weird, thorny issue. I can go actually all the way back to the Istanbul Stock Exchange. They had a rate limit on an API, so it's more of a specific example. I'm going to file off the serial numbers and some of the details, but they had an API. There was a rate limit. And they said you can send up to 5 orders per second. So, all right, 5 orders per second. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that I can send 5 orders in the same microsecond and then wait for 1 second minus 1 microseconds and then send another burst of 5 nearly instantaneous requests? Can I send an average rate of 5? If my mean over time goes slightly above or slightly below, is that a violation? The Istanbul Stock Exchange actually defined it as within a given second, their clock determined the start and end of the second, and they looked at that bucket.
12:01:01, between 12:01:01 and 12:01:02, during that 01 second on the clock, in that span of time, I could send a maximum of 5 orders.
Yep.
Right?
But
if I send a 6th order in that window, then it's no good. But
yep. It gets rejected and I get throttled.
Right. But I could, for example, right, like at 12:01:01:59, so it's about to be the second number 2. It's about to be second number 2. I could slam in 5 requests instantly, right, in the microsecond. And then as soon as the clock ticks over to the second, I could slam in 5 more, effectively getting 10 requests in 2 microseconds, 1 on each side at the end of a window and the start of a window.
Yep.
Right? And then I just have to wait a whole second before I can do anything else.
Now, this creates a problem for the stock exchange because now, instead of having a rate of 5 requests per second that's reliable, you have extremely high bursts that are double the rate you can expect happening every second. Just every second.
Every second, people send 10 orders in a 2 microsecond window.
Now, let's say computer science problem. You're someone using this API. Your job, your boss tells you, we want to get as many orders as possible to the stock exchange 24/7 without throttling ourselves.
Well, stock exchanges aren't open 24/7, but okay.
Yeah. Well, during the hours it's open, because actually that stock exchange has some auction windows and there's after hours trading. Stock markets outside of the U.S. have a lot of crazy cool stuff that goes on. They literally have auctions. Like, all right, for the stock market stops, now we're going to do auctions for the next hour, and then we're going to go back to the regular stock market.
That sounds fun.
It actually is kind of fun. But
so say sincerely, I said it's sincerely fun.
So say the computer science problem you're given, you're a programmer at a bank that interacts with an exchange or a broker or something. Maximize this pipe. Get as many orders to the exchange as possible. How are you actually, like, what logic are you going to write to interact with a system like this where you don't control the network latency, so you don't have perfect control of when those requests get to the exchange. You also don't know exactly how their clock is synchronized. You can try to synchronize to the same source, but there's going to be some slew, some drift. Your clocks are not perfectly in sync. No clock is in sync with any other clock. That's impossible. So how do you do it? How do you write that code? And that is a problem.
I think what you sort of have to do is just, queue up the orders you want to make.
You can't queue. Yeah, queues are a problem.
On your end, right? And then just, in whatever order you're going to send them over, right? Turn up the rate, right? Just keep going faster and faster until you start getting rejections, and then turn it a little bit slower, and then you're good.
Yep. Because it turns out that is probably the best you can do, short of maybe having an AI look at the data and optimize it slightly further. Because there's no correct way to do that. There's no way to optimize that. You're going to have to just do it by trial and error. Because guess what? At the time, the clock jitter at the Istanbul Stock Exchange wasn't even that great. And it was kind of variable how it detected the metering. Because if it got overwhelmed, the metering also got overwhelmed. So you wouldn't get rejections back right away. Because you'd hit them with a burst, and then they would back off, and they would have a problem, and then you try to send your next message, and then they throttle that one because they just caught up on the metering of your requests. And that doesn't even get into, how do you inform the other side? TCP even has a back pressure mechanism of sorts that doesn't actually super work that well. But how do you inform a user of an API that they have hit a rate limit? How do you throttle someone who's using your API, knowing that any response you send back to someone costs resources just like responding to a request? Hopefully fewer resources, but it still takes resources.
Yep. I mean, usually with normal HTTP APIs, right, RESTful APIs and the like, is you just send back, some sort of 400,
Yep.
right? It's like, I forget which exact code number it is. Oh, 429, too many requests, right?
Yep.
So it's like, as if someone's sending too many requests to your web server, you just, you identified them by their IP address or something, right? And then you've either on your proxy out in front of your application, or maybe if your application's real simple, just in the application.
Yep.
It's like you have some way of identifying the user, probably their API key, right? And it's like you flagged that account as having too many requests because, somehow. And now, until that flag is removed, any request they send, you don't have to bother looking at the request, what it is. You just see who it is, and you send back a 429 response.
Yep.
And that does take some processing, but much less because you're basically not even spending time to parse the request itself other than what you need to identify who sent it.
Yep. That could also be like farmed out to another machine or some other hardware. That's something.
Yeah, that's something the proxy out in front is going to be handling.
Yeah.
Right? Your application server isn't going to see those messages.
Yeah, I built with
API gateway or something.
I built with a team many years ago at a different company for the fixed protocol. My boy. The architecture generally is you got something called a fix engine, which is the software that speaks fix. So when people are hitting your API, they hit that fix engine. But then your applications that do logic are behind that fix engine. So the fix engine itself, once it is told this consumer, like this connection, this API, the equivalent of an API key, it's actually stupider than that, but effectively, you've identified a person. Once you decide you're going to start rejecting their stuff, the fix engine directly rejects with a type of message that does not need any confirmation from the mothership. So you're just using resources in that proxy, and hopefully your proxy is not the thing that's getting overwhelmed, but your expensive system is not even seeing those requests. It's already cut them off.
Yep. But it's still a pain in the ass, right? They could try to still keep, if they're evil, they could just keep trying to send so many messages, and it's like, if your computer is more powerful or faster than someone else's computer, right? You can always ruin them, basically, no matter what, right?
Yep.
This is what the DOS is, or the DDoS, right? It's like you just have more computers or faster computers or both, and you send someone so much traffic to their service, their internet service. It's like it doesn't matter how well programmed it is or what kind of stuff they've got. It's like they're gonna go down, and without the help of someone, bigger and badder with some network shit out in front of them to do something about it.
Yep. Because, back when I was playing Quake 2 in that era, there was a thing that you could do, and, the networks used to be more open, and I did this a few times for fun, and people did it to me. You do a SYN flood. So what you do is you know the IP of a player because you can actually get that information from your client. So you're playing, and you know the IP of someone else on the server, and you just launch another application, usually from another computer, not the one you're playing Quake on, because that Pentium 200 cannot run two things at the same time. And you just have it open TCP, send SYN packets. So open TCP connections to random ports on that IP address, back before people had like NATs and things that protected them, and never do anything with them. So you're basically keeping them busy by trying to set up new connections, and it's from an IP they don't recognize, but in that era, it would take so many resources to address those that it would basically knock them off the network and they'd get kicked off the Quake server.
Yep.
So how do you rate limit if you don't have an API key? That's actually why there are companies that provide these services on a global scale, because it's a very hard problem to solve.
Yeah, imagine if, you just have a website, right? It's a blog, and it has a page, and the page is a public blog post that you wrote that you want the whole internet to read.
What if the whole internet reads it?
And then, so what if the whole internet, even if you have the simplest web server, it's just static serving pages with Nginx. It's like, takes no resources. The computer it's on is crazy fast, right? It's like it's caching the web page in RAM or something, right? It's just like, it's like, yeah, okay. So every time someone says, I want to see the web page, what the minimum the computer has to do is take the network HTTP request, parse it, understand it, go get the data from RAM, create an HTTP response, or, right? Because even if it's in a cache, that's RAM, right? Or maybe it's the L2 cache in the CPU, right? But it's still cached in some kind of memory in the computer. And then send electric electricity out the network with the HTTP response packet, right? Even if that HTTP response packet in its totality has been cached, you're going to need to at least update the IP address in it so it goes to the correct person if multiple different people are asking for the web page, right? And so the output on your little network hole, right, for sending out web pages might be the bottleneck. It's like you have gigabit Ethernet. If your web page is 1 megabit, and you can send that web page out 1,000 times a second, and if you have 1,001 people every second asking for the web page, now you have a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, aside from all the math problems, even calculating the rates and metering them, throttling is actually a way harder problem.
Oh, it wouldn't be 1,000. It would be like a billion. I can't do the math. Right? It's like,
but how do you, if you are, say,
that's 1,000. Yeah.
So say you are on both sides of the equation and you just want to make sure that your consumers in, say, a work environment or a game server environment or something, you're like, you have control of the systems, not worried about DDoSs or anything.
Yeah, you control both ends.
But even then, how do you build systems that won't overwhelm other systems? Because there aren't really good ways to do this. Like, there are algorithms that you will look up and implement to do this sort of thing. Like the leaky bucket is actually one of the most used ones in capital markets. There's various variations on leaky bucket because we have a problem. Let's say I'm sending you, you and I both work at the same company, and I got a thing that's going to send you orders, like to go execute out at the market. So my orders are time sensitive. So if I'm sending them to you faster than you can process them, you're building up a queue in your own system. So at some point, you might start rejecting things I'm sending because you're going to tell me, yo, you've already got 100 orders open, buddy. I can't accept any more until I chew through this queue. But on my side, I can't just slow down my requests because my requests are coming from an even further upstream system. It's generating a queue of orders based on a signal from the market. That's not tied to any of our technology because that's the thing that is driving the business itself. You don't have control over that. Like if you run an oil refinery, you don't have control over how much pressure is coming up out of the ground. Sometimes it might go haywire because the earth is terrifying. So what do you do about it? So now I can't just queue them all up because if Scott's slower than me, and I just queue things up on my side, now all these orders are behind Scott's queue and my queue. My queue is growing, and eventually either I'm going to run out of RAM or Scott's going to run out of the RAM.
Or the market will close and you'll be sitting there holding orders.
Yep. Or I've got orders now that are so old, nobody wants them anymore. And it gets worse. A common situation in capital markets that I used to sell software to address, an order comes in, it's still in the queue. It's been in the queue so long, like dozens of seconds, that the market now says, no, never mind, and sends a cancel to cancel that order. So now I've got an order that's stuck in molasses, not even at the market yet. I've got a cancel chasing it, moving even slower than the order toward the market. That's the situation where the order is going to hit the market at a fucked up price and send a bunch of shares back that I don't want. And then my cancel is going to get there. And Scott's system's going to say, what do you mean cancel? I already filled that order. And yeah, that's the kind of problem that you could make a living where your whole job is basically trying to handle rates and rate limiting and throttling and the caches and queues and the entire infrastructure of how do you prevent APIs from overwhelming each other.
Yep. The most basic algorithm that I'll use if I don't want to overwhelm someone else or myself is basically like the exponential back off, which is like, I'll send as many as I can send. And it's like, oh, well, they started failing. All right, well, I will basically, how often was I sending them? What, every second? It's like, all right, well, we'll send them every, 2 seconds. Now, oh, it's still failing? We'll try every 4 seconds, every 16 seconds, right? We'll keep waiting longer and longer between it's usually when there's like a fail retry situation.
Yeah.
Like you have one thing you're trying to do and it's like, it's not getting through.
Yeah.
It's like you just wait a longer period of time between your reattempts. It's like, well, it didn't work. All right, well, I guess I'll wait an hour now. I guess I'll wait 4 hours now.
If you're using Twitter,
I'll wait 8 hours now.
You go to check Twitter and Twitter's down and you refresh the page right away. Then you refresh it again. Then you refresh it again. Then you play a game for a while. You check back in like 5 minutes. Like it's that algorithm. You do it naturally all the time. 2 people talk at the same time. They back off.
Yep.
That back off is actually how Ethernet worked. Like that is the fundamental concept, with some variations and some nuances of how Ethernet worked before we had fully switched networks too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, really common algorithm, but it doesn't work if Scott, the requester, does not have control over when he needs to do the request. This is more a situation around graceful failure where it ain't working. Trying 10,000 times a second over the course of a week, if it's still not working, isn't helping anybody. And the request can't be fulfilled regardless.
Yeah. I think, the fundamental thing here that's like most upsetting, right, is that even if you try to be good guy internet, right, and, not do a capitalism or a copyright or an evil and just make stuff freely available on the internet. You make some API, free for all. Here's this wonderful data for everybody, all the scientific data, all that, right? People are going to request it. And it's like, now if it's popular and, if it's not popular, it's like, okay, fine, great. It's, okay.
The more valuable it is for society, the worse you are for having created it.
Right. It's like, if you made something good and valuable that everyone wants, it's like, woohoo, good. That's great. Right. It's like, the value that I was trying to give out is getting out, and society is better for having this information available to all for free. But now it's unavoidable. It's because there's so many requests for this data. It costs you money to provide it now, right?
Yep.
And now what do you do? And it's like, well, if you don't want to spend more money to be able to serve more requests faster, then your only choice is to serve fewer requests and have some sort of rate limit. And like, all right, only 10 people can come into my restaurant at once because I only have enough staff to seat 10 tables.
Yep.
The end, right? I can't do anything about it.
Now
it's just the laws of physics.
This problem is getting right now, like over the last year, exponentially worse because of machine learning and artificial intelligence, because these models, anyone can make a model. Like you can just buy some like cloud hardware and you're good to go. Like you can just buy capacity, buy compute, run it on a desktop, doesn't matter. Like you can just get access to this stuff. And there are just people running models all over the place, just pulling in training data from anything they can find on the internet that's free. And it doesn't cost them anything to do this.
Yeah, and they might not even have like particular, like, human interest in your data specifically. Yeah. It's just, they're just going around finding APIs and getting data, period.
Yep.
Right.
This is going to be a big problem that's only going to get worse right now. The consumed side is dwarfing the production side in terms of database or functionality-based public APIs.
If you just want to have a really good time, go buy a domain, the cheapest domain you can get, make a boring old web page, right? And just look at and there's like just some text web page or something. And like no one knows about your web page yet. All you've done is you have to have a domain or it's probably not going to work.
Yeah.
It might work without one, but the domain is really going to make it work. And just no one knows about your web page except you, right? And you made a domain. So I guess people know that this domain was registered. And it's like, just look at the HTTP access logs, see who's visiting, like the number of bots and other various things that are coming to look at your web page, how often they're looking, right? It's like, for some web page that, quote, no one knows about, no human has seen, right? It's like, it's a lot.
But even worse, even if there's a human with intent and it's not some just like mindless model someone built that they're just throwing random training data at. So I've seen this in my career too, in capital markets all over the place. Say, someone wants to send you a transaction of some kind and the thing's down. They'll try to reconnect within microseconds. Like they will just immediately try to reconnect to the point that their reconnection attempts themselves look like a denial of service attack, because that costs them effectively nothing. And their rationale is, what do I care what happens to the person I'm querying? I just want to connect and get my thing done as fast as possible. Why not just flood them with requests? That way, when they do come up, I'll be the first one to reconnect to them. Now scale that up and you've got hundreds of thousands of clients all doing this simultaneously.
Yeah, it's like, and the thing is, sending requests is very, very inexpensive relative to servicing requests, right? It's a lot easier to go to a restaurant and say, I would like one salad, please, than to make a salad and put it out on the table. That's a lot more work. Right? So yeah, it's
This is
even if it's the simplest order, like I would like that pre-made donut from behind you. That's still more work than just asking.
So yeah, I think this topic has always been an issue in a lot of different like computery fields, but I think the concepts of basic throttling and rate limiting, like they are going to become vastly more important right now, immediately ongoing. Like this is an area you could specialize in and do well.
Well, the reason it's happening right now is obviously the Twitter and Reddit going down the shitter, right? Have both run into this problem where they were giving out free access to their APIs to anybody. Because it's like, and it's sort of like for both of them, it's like, well, why not, right? Our websites are public websites. All the data on them is free anyway.
If anything, an API makes it less resources for them, because if someone's going to scrape them, they'll at least hit the API you can tune, and they're not like pulling your actual rendered web pages.
So people come and they get a free API keys for Reddit or Twitter, and they start hitting the Reddit API, and they make a Reddit client or they make a Twitter third-party client.
Yeah.
It's like, or they do something else. They scrape a bunch of tweets from Twitter and use it for purposes. They scrape some Reddit and use that for their own purposes. And it's like that costs, even though they have the hardware and the infrastructure to handle a lot of those requests, it costs them money because servicing requests is expensive and asking is cheap. So Twitter and Reddit, which have never made money basically, right? And are now in a time period where people are, especially those are for-profit companies, right? Who haven't been profiting ever. And now they're in situations. Right?
The evil wizard who gave them money and power long ago came back and asked for his fucking money back.
Yeah, and so they're like, well, our cost, we have to reduce cost. We can't figure out a way to raise revenues right now, right? So we're going to reduce cost. We have to find some way to bring the requests down, and we can save money. And it's like that and now as a result, they're making, when you make requests, have either you service less of them or charge people to get them or limit them. You make your service less useful for the people who are using it, and now they're unhappy.
And I think this fundamental area is one of those challenges to the internet, capital I internet, similar to some of the early challenges of like, there wasn't enough bandwidth. Like now we have plenty of bandwidth, that is holding the internet back from a whole new future paradigm. Like before broadband, the internet was very limited in what it could be used for. Just getting enough bandwidth. You hit this critical mass where suddenly people could do cool things that were literally impossible before, except
you can't watch a video, because even if we have the whole internet to ourselves, the pipe that sends the data cannot send enough data for you to get a video, frame in a 30th of a second or even a 24th of a second. And therefore the video will render, in less than the frame rate it's supposed to be, unless you wait for the whole video to download, which could take for fucking ever.
So
whereas now I can send you a 4K video, and I can send a full frame of 4K data, right? Faster than the time you're going to spend watching that frame. And so you can push play and watch a 4K video immediately.
I mean, the number of 33 6K VPS modems it would take running simultaneously for you to watch this YouTube live stream of Geek Nights is staggering.
It's a lot of modems.
So, but I think what's cool about this is that right now, regardless of what people are trying to use it for, the reality is that the internet, these platforms, despite the fact that there's fewer websites and these platforms got too big, the data, the information, the things that people have put on the internet are so valuable to humanity that now we don't have a way to distribute them to anyone, mostly because of capitalism. So what that does imply, to turn this into a positive spin, is that there are a lot of people who have a lot of really good ideas and are trying to do cool things. And someday, I hope we will solve these problems, and this data will be available in a way that people can make cool things, just like podcasts and video games and all these things appeared on the internet because we solved this one fundamental technological problem: bandwidth.
I think you will need 6,000 33.6 modems to watch a 4K video.
That sounds plausible. I was about gonna do the math for the stinger, but you beat me to it.
I think you need 6,000 modems.
I had one, and it didn't even run at a full 33.6 because it was plugged into our worst phone line.
Yeah, let's do a 56K modem.
You know, I never had a 56K modem.
I did. I had a USB one. You need 3,500-ish 56K modems.
Yep. And you would have had to live in a place where 56K worked.
It worked where I live.
Yeah, it didn't work in most places in
I played
America.
Tribes 2 on a 56K modem, which actually was not bad.
Yeah. Still, that game, well, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about that game in our PAX panel.
Okay.
Because I realized, I guess we're done with the show, but I realized there's a progression we could do in the panel of games. This game's not impossible to play. It's just hard to play, and you're not going to put the effort in. This game's not impossible to play, but you have to acquire specific exe files, and like there's a complicated thing. This game's almost impossible to play, but you got to find one of the few dudes who has BattleTech pods. There's only a few of them.
I think there's a cooler idea to do the panel of these are games that are alive because of one dude somewhere.
Yep. I feel like we're going to incorporate that in a big way. We should try to make. You know what?
I feel like that could be the whole panel, like games that you can play because one dude is holding it together.
I got the BattleTech guy's card from the last MagFest I went to that he was there.
BattleTech Pod. You got Tribes 2 guy, Dragon Dice, sort of, right?
Yep.
The Netrunner people, the. You know, it doesn't have to be literally one dude, but it has to be some sort of special community interest effort that is like, you know, that is holding this game, right, and keeping it from just fading away into history.
If we get enough people to turn that into a deeper panel, I think, you know what I'd call it? Keeping the scene alive.
Could be. There's those guys who saw at PAX once with their Holding Meridian 59 MMO.
Right.
Whoever, the Realm MMO, whatever those people are doing, right?
Yeah, they're doing something. There's
several MMOs that are that. There's people who've got like the Tecmo Bowl. They update it they update the roster every year and have little tournaments.
Oh, the Realm is down for maintenance because of the 4th of July holiday.
Wow.
And their website is also down for the holiday. We'll be back on the 5th.
Interesting.
There were, before it went down for the holiday weekend, 178 people logged in, which honestly, that is more than were logged in over a holiday weekend in like 1997 when I was playing this game.
Yeah. Right.
There'd be like 4,000 people on the server total on a poppin' day.
Yep.
All right, I think that was a fun show. We went long enough.